Hello, everyone. Welcome to Coffee Tea, You and Me. I am Coach Powell. I am here to help all you SWAM business leaders, all you small women and minority-owned entrepreneurs focus on everything you have to focus on to make your business magical. Make sure that everything works the way you need it to work. Today, we are focusing on one of the latter parts of a series we've been talking about now for almost 8 weeks. We've been talking about the trajectory between mindfulness and happiness and strategic success, everything you need to get to high performance. How do you get there? How do you maintain it? How do you make sure that you've created the structure around you so that you can sustain it? Critically important view and absolutely special stuff we're going to talk about today. Today we get a chance to share some of the ideas that we're coming with, and we're going to make sure that we do all we can. I'm gonna load everything up here so I can make sure I know what I'm talking about, right? And we can focus on a great program today. Before we get started, for those of you who are logging in or those who are checking this out for the first time, what I need you to know is this is broadcasted live on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and on YouTube. And so the chat box is open. It's available for you to put any information that you want to put in there. If you want to share your business or share your ideas or thoughts or whatever, make sure you give us everything we need to know to get in contact with you. There are people out there who might want to know. I don't care if you, whatever your job is, whatever your business is, put your information in the chat. Tell us where you're coming from, because we want to know who's out there in the audience. And even if you're watching this in a recording, it's okay. Still engage, still participate. You never know if you have a question of any type, who might answer that question and be a resource for you. When I started this program, I started doing a live event every Friday at a local coffee shop here in Centerville, Virginia. And I started working with business leaders, and I would always tell them, okay, in order for you to participate, in order for you to play, you make sure you ask a question. Don't come to the table unless you have a question, because that way we keep everybody engaged and we keep all kinds of good conversation going. If there's a topic that you want to know about in the future, if there's something that you're interested in, and you haven't covered in any of the back episodes, definitely check out what that opportunity could be. I'm sorry, I'm checking. I got emergencies going on right now because I got family members coming in out of town, and I got a lot of people that are doing things, so I have to pay attention to what's going on. So I apologize for that. But today, again, we're talking about the last section of a long planning session we were talking about when it comes to developing a trajectory between making sure that everybody that you're working with finds a way to be a high performer. Today is about high performance teams, high performance concepts. What do you need to do to create high performance? Before we can get into high performance, I kind of want to think about what it means. When you think about a high performer, what do you think about? Do you think about an athlete? Do you think about a musician? Do you think about some other type of entertainment or show that you've participated in before? Because that's what I think about. I think about Janet Jackson, Michael Jackson. I think about Prince. When I think about high performers, I think about some of the greatest athletes like Michael Jordan or LeBron James. I think about the Black Mambo, right? So it's important when you realize what high performance is and you want to get there in the workplace and you want to create a team that is a high performing team. Look at the standards that come along with high performance. What do high performers deliver that your regular average everyday producer does not? And what is the difference? You see, producing is literally an expectation that's reasonable for us to have. If you're a producer, if you work in a position or a job, or you have a title or a role, usually your position and the roles and responsibilities of your position are spelled out somewhere. They might be spelled out in your workplace documents, your performance plans, anything, any documentation that there is that kind of spells out, here's your role, here's where you fit on the org chart, right? Here are the things that you're responsible for. Here are the ideas and concepts that we're going to hold you accountable to. And you kind of know this is what is expected of me. I know what to do. But is that all there is? Does that make you a high performer? If you're just doing your job, if you're just doing what everybody expects you to do, if you're just doing what was planned to be done. Everybody on the NFL has gotten to there because in their previous lives or opportunities, they have been high performers, right? Everybody in the NBA, everybody in the NFL, everybody in the Baseball Association, every player has been a high performer. Usually every coach has been a high performer at some place. They got noticed and recognized as being a high performer, and then they were allowed to be elevated to the next level of whatever game that they're playing, right? It's no different than the rest of us. Producers, people who are, if you think about it, just go back to the NFL for a second. Everybody who was in the NFL was probably a college player at some point. And in college, guess what happened? They played the game. And they just didn't play the game well. They played the game at a very, very high level. They were high performers. The difference between those who elevated to the NFL and those who did not is usually the level of the performance that they gave. Now, everybody on the team at the universities aren't high performers. They're just members of the team. They're just people that got a chance to be on the field. They got a chance to be in the stadium. Some of them sat on the bench, for their whole college eligibility. So they weren't considered, even if they were talented, they weren't necessarily considered high performers because they didn't get a chance to display their talent. And it makes a big difference in business and entrepreneurship and everything that I work with my clients and customers on. When you're trying to think about what you're trying to accomplish in your business, when you're trying to think about what you're trying to accomplish on your teams, you have to ask yourself, what's good enough and what's high performance? And what is the difference? High performers wow the audience. So whoever your stakeholders are in your business, in your industry, if they're not bowled over, if they're not extremely happy, if they're not jumping up and down with excitement about what you're doing and what you've done, are you a high performer? Or are you just meeting expectations? Are you just doing what you're supposed to do? There are things that you've planned to do, others have planned for you to be able to do, and you've done those things. Does that make you a high performer? Or is that you just meeting expectations? Are you just dialing it in? Right? Are you just doing the job that you're supposed to do? Because a high performer is going above and beyond what is called for. A performer is doing better than others expect of them. And this is the difference. So imagine if you have a team full of high performers, what can be done? What can be done if you have people that are committed to taking it to the next level, always looking for a better way, always striving to be better at whatever role it is that they play. No matter what role they play on the team, they're always striving to be better. Ultimately, high performers are people that become legendary at what they do, so much so that no matter what they do, people trust them. They have a high level of trust. There's a high level of expectation. And so every time they're out there, whether it's on the shop floor doing whatever they're doing, if they're planning and organizing for a team, if they're executing a project plan, if they're doing whatever they're doing, right, it is expected because of their history that they're going to be amazing. Now, it's very difficult to sustain that level of connection and commitment to task, to organization, to discipline. And I have to tell you, it's rare for people to be able to do it year after year after year after year after year after year. And at some point, everybody gets to a level where they can no longer increase their level of performance. They can no longer innovate and create in a way that's going to create even more of an opportunity. Not only that, and they start to slip. At that point, it's a problem for high performers, because high performers are used to being able to deliver amazing results, not just results, amazing results. And so it's very difficult for them to accept that, Father Time has maybe caught up to them, technology maybe has caught up to them, information, knowledge transfer, maybe that's caught up to them or lack thereof. It's hard for a high performer to find themselves being less of a performer than they may have been in the past. And that's probably when, a lot of change is going to happen in the universe and in the world. This is happening right now, right? We're in the Great Resignation. Everybody's talking about how people are leaving jobs in droves. Careers all over the world are being retooled, revamped, reevaluated, and people are rethinking what they're doing. They're rethinking their abilities to connect and to work within certain environments, and they're changing and challenging previously existing paradigms. And so they're trying new things. They're becoming new people. If you want to be a high performer and maintain yourself at a very, very high level, then you're going to have two things. One, you're going to have a loss mitigation strategy and a growth strategy. Now, what do I mean by that? As you grow into whatever it is that you're doing, you're going to have more and more specificity. You're going to specialize more and more. You're going to niche more and more, which means as you specialize, you're not going to be doing things that you maybe used to do. Somebody else is going to have to do those things, because those things have to still get done, right? No matter what it is, no matter what role you play, whether you're a father or a husband, a business owner, or entrepreneur, either you're a worker, a team leader, a supervisor, whatever it is that you're doing, as you get better and better and better at it, you're going to want to become more of an expert. And an expert is usually a specialist. Usually you're not going to find an expert who's a jack of all trades. They may know a lot about a lot of things, but they're expert and can be absolutely trusted and have tremendous integrity around the one thing that they're superiorly good at, more than anything else. So that loss mitigation strategy is what do you do to deal with the things that you no longer can do at even a high, even a productivity level. You might used to be able to do everything at least a productivity level, but now, because you're dialed into that high performance on the one thing so specifically, you're not really that good anymore at the thing that requires just a basic level of productivity. Those are times for you to think about that loss mitigation strategy. That's the time when you think about giving that function to someone else who can then specialize and become a high performer. So if you imagine, if there's 5 key components to whatever it is that you do, and you become the specialist at one, right? In order to maintain a level of high performance, you're going to have to find other people to pick up the other 4 components to make sure that everybody's there. And you have to give them the space in the room to grow in that space. And if you don't have those people there, those resources there, you need to find out how you're going to get them. That's your loss mitigation strategy, right? Then there's the growth strategy. How do you grow? Once you have reached the pinnacle of your game, whatever that game is, you realize that you can't go any further. The only way to go any further is to have a team. And the only way to create a team is to create the team before you actually need them, which means everything you're trying to do at a high level is going to demand people that you may not currently know. And you have to have a strategy to acquire that talent, to make sure those gifts and resources are available and at your beck and call when you need them. And I don't mean beck and call as you own something or you are going someone or you're going to manipulate someone. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the collaboration opportunity. I'm talking about the opportunity to share and grow along with another professional, someone else. So if you think about it, the only way to truly have a high performance team is to develop the relationships you need to develop with people who are going to become high performers in the category that they need to become high performers in order for the team itself to know that they're performing at a high level, and they can then do more than they can ever do by themselves. So you need a loss mitigation strategy, and you need a growth strategy. What's going to happen when you start to elevate your team to a level of high performance? Again, you're going to create an environment of trust, not just with the people that are stakeholders in whatever you're doing, your investors, your people that are buying you your product or service at a high level, or maybe contractors dependent on you to fulfill that contract. Not only are you going to have a high level of trust with them, but you're going to have a high level of trust, more importantly, within the team. Because the team is going to be able to look at one another and say, okay, wow, I'm impressed the way you do that. I'm glad that you're doing it because I couldn't do it as great as you could. And together we can do amazing things, right? This is very, very important if you want to automate success. If you want to generate tremendous success and you want to be able to continue to generate success, you're going to have to keep that team strong. You have to do everything you can to make sure that team is still wants to perform at a high level and is performing at a high level. When you get there, you're going to create a tremendous amount of confidence in each other and a tremendous amount of speed and effectiveness and efficiencies. You'll be able to do it in a way that no other people could do it because they don't have a team full of high performers. You have a team full of high performers, magic happens, literally more than anybody could plan. You still should plan. I'm not saying abandon a plan, but definitely make sure that when you recruit the people that you need to recruit to execute your plan, you're executing people who care and want to be high performers. One of the things that, all of us know is, we've been in professions and we've been in organizations and we've been in families that have taught us what it is to be excellent, what it is to be good, what it is to be great. That comes from a historical knowledge. But what happens generally with high performers is they break through those paradigms. They break through what we have maybe a thought was possible in that particular role or in that job or in that sequence or in that advisory capacity, whatever it is they're doing. We have an expectation and they have blown those expectations out of the water, setting a new bar of expectation. And the more people who know that this performance can be done at this level, all of a sudden now there's a new level of what's possible. If any of you all have paid attention to the world of, say, dance in the last 50 years, what was an amazing piece of choreography, an amazing step 50 years ago, right, is like canon today. It's to be expected that how to do that particular move, and it's a derivation of something of a derivation of a something of a derivation of something else, which is a derivation of something else. And if you're keeping up with the history of whatever it is that you're doing, especially in the world of dance, you're going to know that there are moves and ways of executing things that no one would have thought was possible that is now standard today, but no one thought it was possible even 50 years ago. And it's that way in every industry. It's that way in every profession. There are new opportunities where people have been high performers and others have noticed it. And then the bar gets raised as we begin to transmit culturally and socially what the new effort is, what the new opportunities are. And that's how culture transmits from person to person, organization to organization. And that's what happens in our world. So it's very, very important. High performers are very, very important because they push the envelope. They make us aware that there are newer, better ways to get things done, whatever it is that you're trying to do. If it was not for high performers, we wouldn't have Apple. We wouldn't have a Steve Jobs, right? Who's pushing this organization to do something that hasn't been done before, because they imagine it and then drags everybody along with them. because as they continue to innovate and create more and new, better products and services, what happens? Everybody goes, we want that, we want copycats, right? We want somebody else who can do it like that. Or can you one up it? Can you bring us something better? Can you bring us more pixels? Can you bring us more bytes and bits? Can you help us organize what's going on even more so? And that's kind of what happens as we get to more and more higher performing efficiencies and effectiveness of everything. It's critical to think about that, because you have to ask yourself the question: if I elevate my game, whatever my game is, to the highest level that is possible, right? How will I know I've arrived? What do I need to do to get there? These are questions that you need to wrestle with. Because if you don't, what happens is you find that you think you're performing at a high level, right? You think you're doing the greatest, but you're not really, because there's other people who are doing so much better. You just don't know that it's even possible. And that's why you have to stay plugged into whatever you do. Stay plugged into your association, local associations, stay plugged into the industry, stay plugged into the politics of it all, the social aspects of it all, the economic aspects of it all, so that you can see what's happening in the environment and you can see where you need to play and what high performance looks like. Because unless you have a model of what it is, then how do you know that you're performing even better, right? If you look at any industry, you're going to find that the innovators of yesteryear are now the standard bearers of today. And if you want to be a high performer, you have to think about, how can you innovate? How can you grow beyond what the current standard is? How can you do it better, faster, more efficiently, more effectively, at lower cost? How can you do it at a higher demand? How do you change the game and make it something completely different? Today, we credit Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, the Boston Celtics, and the Los Angeles Lakers with rescuing the NBA as we know it. Because of them, the game was no longer boring or stifling. It became exciting. It became something interesting for people to watch. And because they dominated the game so high, so at such a high level for so long, they changed the game around them. Every innovator that does this, everybody in high performance, before them, it was Bill Russell, it was Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, it was Dr. Julius Erving, right? It was, then it was Michael Jordan and the rest of the players, right? So you think about it, high performance people always elevate the game. When Tiger Woods is no longer able to create high levels of performance in golf, he will have changed the game of golf. Not just who comes to watch it, of course he's done that too, but he's also elevated the possibilities for other players. Venus and Serena Williams did the same thing for tennis. But Martina Martinova did that before they did. And so did Chris Everts. Right? So every time you find a new high performer, the next big thing, the game shifts, no matter what the game is, no matter what, whether it's corporation or sports or entertainment or whatever it is that you do, you have to ask yourself, do you want to be a game changer? Or do you just want to do what's required? Because what's required is what you hear from all the rule makers. Right? All the trainers, all of the people that are involved in whatever it is you're doing right now, they're giving you what you need to get the minimum standards. If you want to really get to high performance, you're going to have to innovate on top of what the canon already is, what the rules already are, what the norms already are established. You're going to have to elevate above those norms if you're going to be a high performer. There's a special energy that happens when we pay attention, when we develop high performance, because at that point, we're at a level now where we're the ones to beat. We're the ones to watch. we're the ones to pay attention to, because we're playing at such a high level. Everybody else is like, how did they do it? What does it look like to be at that level, right? And it's a very, very difficult position to maintain. You can't get there without always asking, how can I be better? How can I be better? How can I be better today than I was tomorrow? If you're not interested in being better and better and better and better and better, even if you are a high performer, you can only stay there for a little while, because you're not taking sort of the game seriously. When you got a high performance team, there are a couple ways that you really, really have to work with them. One, as a leader of a high performance team, you have to be loving. You have to be loving and kind with the individuals that you work with. You have to be full on engaged. They're going to need your attention. They're going to need your support. They're going to need, if you're a leader in that group, they're going to need your energy. They're going to need you to lead the way. They're going to need your guidance. They're going to need your vision, and you got to be there. You got to be affectionate. You cannot be distant and cold and try and commit and communicate to someone else that I got you. I got you back. I'll support you. We're going to do this thing that no one else has ever done before in a way that no one else has done it before, and we're going to crush it. They need to know that, they need to trust that you're going to do everything you can to make that happen. So you got to care about what they care about. If not, it's not going to work. And you got to be empathetic. That's what I mean by caring about what they care about. You got to have a connection to your team members. Each one of you must be intricately connected with one another in ways that are unique and special, because you're not going to be able to get to the unanimity of thought that you need to get to in order to maintain a high level of performance if you don't really connect. That's why that's such a difficulty now, doing so many things with Zoom and so many things with video and so many things with various different technologies, because we're losing that human connection that is so necessary for us to feel like we belong, for us to feel like whatever we're doing, it matters, right? And so it's important, anytime you get a chance, make sure the people that should be honored for their contribution to whatever you're doing are honored. I see we got a couple more guests in the audience. I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to give a shout out. If you can, definitely put your name in the chat, put your information in the chat, so that we could follow up with you and communicate with you. We don't want to leave anybody out. I know we got people out there watching from all over. And again, like I said earlier, if you are coming in from YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, doesn't matter, like us, share this. Make sure that people know what we're doing here for small businesses, because we want to be able to continue to do it for a long time to come. There's a science of teamwork, and I'm going to share with you this document, but there's links here that I want you to know that will help you really, really understand the science of teamwork and how to create high performance teams. One, your team does have a culture, but you need to identify that culture. You need to be identified. You need to be able to make sure that you understand what it is, what its rituals are, what signature logos, what brand opportunities, what motto, what sayings or slogans you're going to use that create and organize the culture that identifies the culture of your organization for what it is. This is tremendously important, because people identify with your brand. Not just your customers, though people who are working in your brand identify with your brand, and they make that identification as something that they're proud of when they're high performers, because they don't want to perform. Nobody wants to perform at a high level for a team or organization that doesn't have its proverbial act together, right? You want to do that. So number one, you got to identify your team culture. Number two, you must find the experts that you need. You cannot tolerate people on the team, around the team, working with the team, who are not good at what they do, who don't value what they do enough to make sure they have the proper training. They make sure they have the best advice and the best possible strategies known. There's not room for laziness when it comes to development on a high performing team. A high-performing team always has the best of the best, have the best tools, the best techniques, the best training, the best of everything. And they can't get there without expertise. You can't get there without people who have the expertise, who are transferring that expertise and making sure others know what it is in their particular roles and wherever they fit. All right. Number 3, when you recruit people to be on your high performance team, you got to check for cultural fit first. Competency is easy. It's easy to find somebody who can fill out a capability statement. It's easy to find somebody who says they have the knowledge, the skills, the abilities to accomplish the KSAs, right? That's the easy part. Competency is easy. But what's difficult is character. What's difficult is finding people who fit in the culture that you created or that you're participating in your organization or your team. Now, here's a rub now. I got to make sure I got to tell you this, because a lot of people think, well, then that means everybody has to look alike, everybody has to be alike, everybody have to have a homogeneous group. And when you do that, yes, you can establish cultural fit, but the problem is you're giving up innovation and you're giving up creativity and perspective that diverse members of the community actually have and can contribute. And so the culture of your organization needs to be open and diverse. And it needs to be fluid where it needs to be fluid. It cannot be homogeneous. It cannot be so cookie cutter, so white bread, so that everything sounds the same, looks the same, and it will be the same 20, 30 years. And the pace of change is way too fast to allow that to happen in any organization or in any team. So I want you to think about that moving forward. Look around your team. Do you all look alike? Do you all come from the same school? Do you all, drink the same Kool-Aid? How are you going to innovate when it's time to innovate? How are you going to grow beyond what you all know because you all learned it from the same places and you all participated in the same games in the same way, right? So you want people who are different. You want people to come from different backgrounds and different socioeconomic opportunities. You want them to all play, because ultimately society is going to be playing with you, and you want to make sure that the culture that you're developing is one that is useful and meaningful and relevant for the society that we live in. Number 4, you have to be able to acknowledge your team's strengths as well as your weaknesses. If you cannot acknowledge your team's and your team's strengths and weaknesses, then I'm going to say that you're not being mindful of what actually you have, what you're really working for, what you're really working with. And if you don't know what you're working with when it comes to your strengths and weaknesses, how do you expose your strengths and how do you grow your strengths? And then how do you mitigate the risks associated with your weaknesses? If you don't even acknowledge they exist, if you're not even aware of them, if you haven't done the analysis, if you haven't sat down and thought through what are the skills you bring to the table and why are those skills relevant? What are the skills each and every one of the team members bring to the team and why are they relevant? How do you communicate back and forth between the team what talents, skills, and resources each other has, and how do you commit those resources to each other, and how do you share that information in a way that fits into your strategic plan and into everything you want to do? If you can't do it, then your team is going to be weakened by that exact same thing. When I created the Vision Quest 90 process, I created 4 different categories that most people, most teams, most organizations and individuals find themselves in. And when they fail, it's usually one of these 4 categories. It's a problem with their vision, it's a problem with their goals, it's a problem with their mission orientation, or it's a problem with their day-to-day tactics. And so between the visionary to the tactical to the strategic, we've gotten everything covered in that pie. Everything that makes a system work or doesn't work, or process work or doesn't work, or team work or doesn't work, is all explained and relevant in that system. So if anybody's interested in the Vision Quest 90 system, you want to find out what that coaching process is all about, give me a call, let me know. I'm going to put my number up here on the screen in just a minute. Number 5, always check your network, right? Because there are people in your network who have talents and skills that you don't know about. If you haven't been paying attention, if you're not aware of what's going on, you got to keep plugged into your network. You got to keep maintain relationships with people. I know that, they may not all be relevant to you in the current moment that you're in. And it's easy to ignore or take advantage of or take for granted those that are right there in your face. But I'm going to challenge you to go deeper and find other ways to connect with people who you're close to and stay connected with them, because even if they're not doing the thing that you're trying to do or progressing in the way you're trying to progress right now, they may be somebody that you're going to be able to tap and use in the future. And you don't want to have that relationship be sour or that relationship be distant when you need them. So you have to maintain those relationships. And you have to keep checking in and keep checking on your networks, because you never know who might know something that you need to know, find out something that you need to find out, hear about something that you need to hear about, know someone that you need to meet, because your network is, your strength of your network is going to be the strength of your capabilities and your possibilities in the future. Number 6, and lastly, the science of teamwork says you got to exercise patience on the team. You really have to be the kind of person who other people feel comfortable talking to, who are that's not necessarily so deadline driven or so statistic driven or so data driven, really, that you're not being patient with people because you think because of a number or because of a goal or because of a statistic, you got this all wrapped up and you know exactly what it is. But there's always a different perspective. There's always different perspectives on everything that there is. If I've lived and learned, I'll learn this 1,000 times over, because I think that, and I'll talk about it 1,000 times over. I think it's that important. Now, once you understand and ingrain these behavioral patterns, these 6 behavioral patterns of a high performance leader, once you get that going in a way that is magical, what you're going to see happen is that, these are going to be things that help you communicate more effectively, and they're going to help you be able to understand what is a reasonable expectation and what is a high performance expectation, right? What is, because anything above reasonable, right, is high. You think about it like that. Anything above reasonable performance is actually high performance. Anything that's above what you can plan for is high performance. Anything that's above what you could, think about and conceive, and that becomes high performance possibilities. High performance teams all share a very similar personality, a very similar response time, and a very similar work intensity. If you have people on the team and you want a diverse, open team of people that have similar communication style, similar personality, they care the same about, how quickly you will respond to issues and problems or situations in their own or in the organization or in the team, and they have an intensity to how they work. The cultures that you use and you work are going to be defined by those things. How do you communicate? What kind of personalities you have? What is your response time to requests or problems or opportunities? And how intense are you when it comes to your work? And if you can't describe those in your culture, I would suggest you do the work, do the analysis, and figure that out, because you're going to need to be able to communicate that even more so. I just read an article a couple of weeks ago. In today's hybrid workplace or hybrid or this is another term I'm thinking about, asynchronous workplace, right? What's going to happen is people are going to be working from all different time zones. They're going to be working from different cultural backgrounds and languages, but they're all going to be working for the same organizations and the same teams. And so understanding how they all play together and how they can all play together well, and if you can articulate that, then that's going to be a great recruitment strategy, because you'll be able to say, well, here's how we do it. Here's what we think about a meaningful response time is, and how we executed it in the past. Here's what we think, the kinds of personalities we have working with us, and overall, these are our characteristics that we all tend to share, right? Being able to articulate that and communicate that effectively to someone is way beyond the job description. It's way beyond what you're going to see even come out in an interview. You're going to have to do a really good job of assessing those products and those capabilities within a person, so that you can figure out, are they a good fit for your organization? Are you a good fit for them? Is this going to work, so that your retention numbers are not going to be continuously plummeting? Instead, they'll be going in the right direction, right? They'll be going up. And people start to go, wow, this is a great place to be. This is a great place to work. This is a great place to have experiences. I can't wait to be here. I'm going to stay here for as long as I can. And this is important to me. But if you have a workplace in where people are just there, I'm just here to do the bare minimum so I can pay my bills, so I can meet my obligation, you're not going to get to high level performance, and that's going to make you suffer when it's all said and done. Because there's others who are going to want to perform at a high level. If they're in the same market that you're in, they're going to take your market share. 86% of all team members statistically say this, that the group is suffering from a lack of teamwork and collaboration. 86% of team members, even on successful teams, if you think about that, are still saying that the group suffers from the lack of teamwork and collaboration. COVID-19, my friends, is not the reason why we're entering in the Great Resignation. It's the last straw that broke the camel's back, because this statistic was way before COVID-19 happened. Can you imagine what has happened over the last 2.5 years to teamwork and collaboration when it comes to high performance in organizations, right? I'm sure it's been very difficult. There's an extreme amount of energy that should be spent in personal meetings and in small group gatherings, just catching up and socializing with each other. Now, I know a lot of you out there, if you're like me, you really hate the gabbing back and forth in organizational meetings and so on and so forth. But I've learned to love it and embrace it. And even if I'm getting on a Zoom call with my friends and associates or whatever, we're going to do some community work or whatever we're doing, right? I think it's important for us to, have some small talk. And I say this with hesitation because it's not my thing. I don't like small talk. I like big talk. I want to get right into the issues that matter. But I realize that small talk is necessary for people to begin to feel safe in the communications process. And even if you are on the same team with somebody and they have a role or they have a specialty or they have whatever they have, it doesn't mean like, and trust one another. It doesn't mean that you're necessarily ready to expose yourself or have them exposed for whatever vulnerabilities might be, or ailments might be, or disabilities might be, different abilities might be, right? So these are things that are out there that are really, really human. And we have to be really good at not just disclosing the truth about ourselves, but finding the moment where that disclosure is going to matter and it's going to mean something. And so that when we, but we have to give each other that room to share. We have to give each other that room to think about, what could go tragically bad if we continue to make assumptions and we continue to use our bias to run our situation in any organization. You have to make sure that you try to do all that you can to recognize that we all have biases, right? We all have them, and but not to let those rule the day. To do more listening, to do more intelligence gathering, do more inquisitive questions about not just what the person is doing, but who the person is. Because the more we can share who we are, the more we can share, what we mean when we say and how we do it and what all, the better we can begin to understand each other, feel safe with one another, and then share what we need to share to create high performance on the teams. People who play together, stay together. Have you heard that? Right? Very, very important stuff. You got to have some fun with this thing. So have some small talk about some things that you did, but talk about things that you think are relevant, not just, irrelevant things, right? The weather. If you all came through the rainstorm, you all know it's raining. We can't be talking. Why spend a whole bunch of time talking about the rain? Everybody got wet. Let's talk about something else, right? That's me, right? I can't stand talking about the obvious stuff. But there's other things we could talk about, right? Why are we here today? What are we hoping to get out of this meeting? How are we hoping to use it to elevate ourselves or elevate our business or elevate our company, so on and so forth? Who do we need to meet? These are things that's small talk for me that I think is relevant small talk. I understand that's maybe difficult for other people, but you got to think about When you're making small talk, it doesn't have to be insignificant. It can be significant and small, and it still can move your relationship into in a position of trust and reliability and consistency and all that kind of good stuff. You got to get these two things right. And I always mentioned once, you got to empower your team to socialize, right? And you have to collaborate the talent that you have. You have to be willing to do that. People who do not want to be engaged, do not want to collaborate, do not want to come to the table with all they have, are a detriment to the team. And they're not people that you're going to be able to hang on to anyway, because they're not going to be there for long term. They're going to suck up and drain up all the resources, and then they're going to move on to some other place. If you really want to get the most out of people, you got to get them engaged, and you got to be engaging to get them engaged, right? So you have to make sure that you're interested in who they are and what they bring to the table. You've got to listen. You've got to respond to what you heard in a powerful, positive way. And then you have to continue to do that all the time. You can never come out of that box. So it's very difficult for leaders today because they're listening to their people, but they're listening to the people speak through email. They're listening to the people that speak through text messages. They're listening to people speak through whatever work app they're using, right? They're listening to people talking through, still people send snail mail, and yet still people even call each other and have phone conversations and group teleconferences and all kinds of different things. So many different things to listen to people with. It can be overwhelming and confusing and very, very difficult. You can listen to people on podcasts and Snapchats, and you can watch all the social media stuff that's going on. You can listen to them there. And so it's critical for leaders to not just listen, but to push out what they need to push out in order to create the energy and the synergy they have to create. And I tell people, in terms of the big ideas when it comes to high performance, there's only a few. And one of the big ideas is to make sure that no matter what you do with your team, that you're pushing together and you're not pulling away. By the way, even those of us who are solo players are not solo players. There are beneficiaries to everything we do. There are stakeholders to everything we do. And we should be thinking about how we can bring them on the team, even if it's for a voluntary basis, even if it's just for idea or just to hear us out. It's a team because we need to function as a team, as human beings. Unfortunately, I majored in sociology. I know this like the back of my hand. Human beings are habitual mammals, and we tend to need to work together in order to survive. And that mechanism in our DNA is not undone by time, because it's an essence of who we are. So we need each other. We need to work together. We need to play together. We need to be together. Whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, at some point you need people. And it's very, very important that you know how to do this together. So you pull together, not push away. Very, very important. Push together, not pull away, right? If you follow an illustration and that I'm going to share with you later on, you'll see what I'm talking about. Number 2, there's no room for your ego. The pride cometh before the fall. There's no room for ego on a team, on a high-performing team as well. You all need to be each other's greatest cheerleaders. And in no time should you be thinking about how I'm going to compete with somebody that's on my team. And I'm not talking about, and it's okay to want to push each other. It's okay to want to pull each other. It's okay to use each other as an example or model. That's great for whatever high performances be. But to want what they have in the way they have it, to the point where it becomes jealousy or becomes spite or becomes vengeful, right? That's taking it to the dark side. Healthy, friendly competition, that's good. But when it starts to turn, it starts to become tragic, and that becomes bad. So be careful of that, Be careful of your own ego, be careful of your own pride and your lack of humility when it comes to being a part of a high-performance team. And that's a whole different talk. We can go there, but I'm sure you've been with people who can't get over themselves, and they've called themselves team players, but they're really ego-driven, really egotistical, and very difficult to work with, very difficult to trust, because they seem to be selfish and self-motivated and self-centered all the time. The next big idea is leave room for everybody to create. You've got to invite as many people as you possibly can onto the team, into the concept that you're trying to explain, that you're trying to work with. When you do that, not only do you demonstrate humility as a leader, but you open up the team to stepping into the creative or innovative strategy that they can, based on their own thoughts and ideas. And they're going to be so much more loyal to those ideas than those that are just generated for them and then dictated to them. Don't be afraid of success. That's big idea number 2, or the next big idea, right? Don't be afraid of success. If you're afraid of success, then you're going to be hesitant when opportunities show up. And a lot of people who are like, you wonder, why aren't you taking advantage of the opportunities that are glaringly obvious that we can see? And it's fear of success. It's the kind of success that might be at the end of this opportunity is unknown to them. And so therefore, they're not sure if they want it. They think they might want it, but they're not so sure if they want it. They're not sure enough to go get it and just cut off all the baggage from the past and embrace the new. Very, very difficult to do for people. And so that's why leaders are there, not just to say, okay, this is possible, but this is possible for us. I believe it, and you need to believe it, and here's why. Right? If you can't articulate that as a leader, then it's very hard pressed to do, very good vision planning. Don't waste talent. If you find somebody on your team has a gift, a talent to do something, even if it doesn't have anything to do with where you're going, find a way to take that gift and use it in a way that's going to move the team forward. Because in doing so, you're going to give the person on the team an opportunity to shine amongst the team, and you're going to help them feel a sense of belonging when you appreciate what they're doing at a high level, right? Don't waste the talent. The last thing I want to mention is death to redundancy. This was a tough one because a lot of organizations actually build in redundancies just in case something happens to somebody else and somebody leaves. I don't know how many of you have ever felt expendable, but it's not a good feeling. And if you're on a team and the team is either counting on you or you're expendable. And if you're expendable and you're part of a team, then you're not going to want to give your heart and soul to it. You're not going to want to fully commit to it. You're not going to see a way to continue to dial up your performance for the benefit of the team, because at the end of the day, you really feel like you don't matter. And when you don't matter, it's impossible. It's not even wise for you to give your best to something that you're in a place or a space where you're not fully appreciated. And so as a leader, it's important that you look at every member of the team and you share with them not only what they're doing that you think is great, but why they are great and who they are as a person and what they mean to you to play with, to be on the team. If you can do this well, and it's not sucking up or being sappy or whatever in the workplace or whatever. I think people worry so much about that they don't give people their flowers while they live, and it makes it very difficult for organizations and teams to continue to move forward and to grow. If you're out there, guys, do me a favor, put your information in the chat. Let us know who you are. Let us know where you're looking in from. If you're dialing in from LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, I want to know, want to see you. So let's make sure you let everybody know, because I want to tell everybody who you are and what your business is. And if you have any questions about anything we talked about so far, definitely let me know. I'm going to take a break now because I think that I'm going to save the latter half of this particular conversation for next week's conversation when it comes to high performance, because there's a lot more to cover and there's some things I want to share with you for sure. So that next week, let's talk more about some high performance. Anybody have any quick questions that they want to ask while we're on the line, while I got you out there? I see you out there in the community. I know that you may have a thought or idea you want to throw in there. Definitely throw it in the chat. If not, we'll keep this party going. Don't forget, share this moment. Don't keep it a secret. Share this moment with other people. Make sure that you like us. Make sure that you give us a thumbs up. Make sure you do all that good stuff on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube. And we will catch you next week. It's been amazing, and I hope you felt the same way. This is Coach Powell, and I'm signing out.